All right, good evening, good evening. All right, yo, we're getting into it. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for coming to spend part of your Sunday, right? While we're learning, we're growing, we're developing. Y'all, super excited this evening because you all know if you know me, you've been tapped into the channel, you've caught basically any kind of piece of a stream, some sound bites, some clips that we've done before, you know that we are super serious, right? That we are super serious about three things. If we had to say, what are those three things? Glad you asked. We're super serious about math learning, math instruction to equal math learning, all right? How students are learning and how we get them there. Two, SEL, social emotional learning, emotional intelligence. And then three, being AI, being AI. So we are really locked in. We are really excited to really be connecting these three things this evening for you all to do a deep dive again into the merger for how it works. Like, okay, you talk about this, and I hope that we are consistently clear and have been consistently clear about how they work well together, why it's a non-negotiable, right, as far as we're concerned. But taking some more time to continue the conversation, to continue to talk about it because we're passionate about it, it's important, and it's impactful, right? All the boxes that when people are going over campus improvement plans, okay, we're looking at data, all these things, all three of these directly impact those numbers, right? Those things that you can track, you can measure, and the intangibles. So just in terms of morale, student confidence, a decrease in math anxiety, right? Math confidence instead. All of these things are directly impacted by math instruction, SEL, and AI. So, again, super excited to talk about those three this evening. Give me a moment to go ahead and share my screen. I have some slides for us this evening. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. All right, here we go. All right, you all. So no waiting, right? We all normally have that up if we were doing a countdown or something, but no need to wait here. We are rolling. So again, thank you again for joining this evening. Thank you for being a part of the conversation, the learning, right? Maybe the challenge a bit for the engagement equation. So the engagement equation, yes, the day-to-day things that students experience in the classroom, are they bored or not? Are we really leaning in to get their attention and keep their attention? But we're using AI, SEL, and really astute, really on point, and really targeted math instructional practices to do so. All right. So, quick overview. We've shown this before. We're going to show it every time. Y'all know we are super serious, super intentional about our intellectual property. So, make sure if you wanted to use something, some clips, anything like that, that you have talked to us. And we especially want to talk to you if you're interested in some development, some training, or being part of our cohorts. We've been talking about that. We're going to have some cohorts for individual educators if you want to sign up, not necessarily through your campus, but on your own this fall. So continue to look out and listen out for that. All right, you all. So, agenda. The main thing you need to know is we really want to emphasize and focus this shift in education. So, I've said it before, and a lot of y'all may know that I've been in education for about 20 years. And the whole time, the entire time I've been in education, everyone has always said, all right, we're working hard, we're preparing the children for the future. Guess what? Pause that, scratch that, slide to the side, because at this point, we're not preparing the children for the future. We're literally co creating the future with them because things are happening so fast. Is why they're in class, is why they're still in elementary school, that they're learning stuff and we're learning stuff too. So we need to be honest about that, that it's a shift. It's not even a preparing them for the future because we don't know what's going to happen. We've talked about this, that things that we're using, tools and things that we're using didn't exist. Okay, not 20 years ago, not 10, not even 5, not 3, you all. So being super clear about that, this shift, I almost want to say, like, if nothing else, if you don't take anything else from tonight's conversation, let that be one of the major things. Just one, because you're going to have a lot of jewels, a lot of gems, I promise. But let that be one, okay, that we are co creating as we prepare them for the future, because it's rolling, it's coming, it's going quickly. Okay, so we went through our agenda very quickly. So, social norms. I always like to emphasize the third one, you all. While we are reflecting, while we're engaging, let's assume and exercise positive intentions. Everything else will fall into place if we really anchor on that third one. So, really quickly in the chat, I see I have some people tuning in live, and thank you so much. And let me say this, if you catch the replay, please do make sure to put hashtag replay. Look, my son reminded me not too long ago, make sure that you hit the little bell, right? That'll notify you all when we go live on YouTube, right? Make sure you hit the bell so you get the notifications when we go live. But the people that are live now, please do drop an emoji in the chat that best represents your feelings about using AI in your teaching regularly. So that could be your day to day, right? I know I have some specialists in the health care field logged in today. Just in your teaching regularly, how do you feel about it? Drop your emoji. And I'll be honest, while y'all are thinking, right? Some of y'all like, Anika, I'm looking for the emoji. That's fine too. I'll be honest, I started not to put teaching, but because a lot of people are using AI regularly, even in their different capacities, and even if they are educators, but they're using it for more administrative things, and it's not necessarily transferring to the actual instruction that's taking place. They're doing it to maybe update a couple things, maybe analyze reports a little faster. But what about actually using it to impact your teaching, your instruction? So we're digging into that. Okay. I see someone has the upside down smiley face. It's like they're concerned. Huh? They're getting their Regina Hall on like this, like, oh no. So we're going to talk about it though. So thank you for your honesty. Someone said, honestly, I don't use it, yet I am willing to learn how it can benefit my adult learners. Yes, you're in the right place. I promise you. Promise you, you're in the right place. Good deal. All right, so the objective, and y'all know I do not read to y'all from the slides, right? I'm going to summarize it for you. The main thing here is that you have some strategies that are immediate with your that you can apply immediately with learners of all ages, honestly. Okay, we're going to talk about making sure we're integrating the AI with the SEL, with math. Y'all know those are my three things. But because I am a nerd, honestly, when we're talking about math instruction, I will also push in some other ideas for instruction in general. Okay, because everyone can benefit. So when we're talking about also diverse learners, I want to be clear because there's a lot of assumption that when we say diverse learners, a lot of people start thinking about language, right? Maybe there's some language translation things that happens. But we have to think about that also includes learning styles that may include different levels of learning. Maybe someone that is a little advanced, someone that's right on target, and someone that may be struggling and need a little more support. So there's so many different ways that we make sure we describe diverse learners. And there's still other ways, honestly, to say, but just making sure you're super open about that when we say diverse learners. Okay, someone else said co-creating versus preparing youth for the future. Definitely a paradigm shift. I like it. Very avant-garde thinking. That to me, that's the reality. That's the reality because it's the whole time. But just think about that. If I've been in education for 20 years and that's what we've been saying the whole time, I'm like, I wonder if they were saying that before then. But just understand that we literally have to pivot, right? It's a pivot, it's a paradigm shift, like you said, because we're not preparing them because we don't even know, if we're honest. And that might be a big moment, a hard moment sometimes for educators, but we do not know exactly what it's going to look like. So we have to give them everything we have, and we're learning along the way. So again, a lot of AI is going to be teachers, educators, different types of educators, right? Different professions, teaching yourselves first so you can best support your learners. Hold that thought. So a little bit about me, right? This lady that's talking, how did I get here? I often say I was literally born for this work. Okay, my dad was an electrical engineer. My mom was a campus social worker and a director in New Orleans public schools. So you would initially get a math teacher that cares quite a lot, right? But there was a certain point, and a certain part in my career when whatever the status quo was, or we're supposed to do as teachers, I was like, this is not working. This is not enough, right? I could see where young people were going to slip through the cracks if only the status quo was being done. Um, I'll tell y'all that specific story. Y'all know, educators, we have maybe 15, 20 minutes of a lunch left, right? By the time you walk the kids, you might use the restroom, make a couple copies, you sit down to eat. The clock is rolling. So imagine, right? My flabbers were gasted when someone walked through the door and they're like, Anika, you have got to come. It's Maya. And I'm like, what is going on? What's going on with Maya, right? So she says she's going to drop out. Mind you, at the time, I was a 7th grade math teacher. So I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, 7th grade? I'm like, okay. So, the usual protocol, like, well, has she talked to the counselor? Does the counselor know? And I'm glad that my colleague, we kept it a buck with each other. We kept it honest. She was like, well, she just moved here. So she just was with the counselor. I said, that's true. I said, well, why did you come tell me? Right. She's like, I don't know. I know that we both teach her. So all of that to say, fast forward, we went and found the young lady. And it really was the point of, look, I get it. You moved here. You thought you were going to be in 8th grade. Your credits didn't go how we thought. So you're in 7th grade. So you're concerned because you like right at a minimum to say she was concerned, right? She was frustrated. She was angry. She was hurt because she thought she was going to be in 8th grade in this new state. So it was just too much newness in some ways, and then not enough newness in other ways, right? Because she was in the same grade, but in a new state with these new people. So I just had to tell her, look, I know we just got here. I know you just met me, but we need you to trust us to the point that we will not let you fail. I don't know. I can't speak to what happened, right, in your old school, but we really, really care about students here. Promise. You just have to trust us. I know you just met us, but just the fact that we pulled you to the side, someone was nosy enough, right? And we both care enough. We pulled you to the side. That student went on to do so well. They literally before the end of the year, she was a leader. She was leading both classes. She skipped 8th grade math, went straight to algebra, and then went on to do like the early college. So she graduated with her associates and her high school diploma when she graduated. So that kind of story, but a very real story. Like once it clicked that we cannot keep doing just the minimum, right? Like, okay, we're checking the boxes. This is proficient. That something else had to happen. And a lot of it was actually asking ourselves to do more intentionally, right? So not just doing more because we do a lot, but just to be more intentional in what it is that we are doing. And to that point of making sure that we're taking care of the young people because we're continuing to learn and grow ourselves. Beautiful account of how caring and taking time with our students really changes lives for the better. Indeed. So I'm so blessed by that. So blessed by that. All right, y'all. So that's enough, right? We're talking about the landscape. So we're talking about AI and SEL. Why do they matter? So I just haven't used it because I'm not so sure about it. I don't really know as much, but I'm willing to learn. But some people are also absolutely against it. They're like, no, I don't want to learn. This is a terrible thing. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then we have other people that's like, this is just one more thing to do. We don't have time. Let's talk about those. So if we don't know much about it, if you're here, you're going to learn some more about it today, right? And then continue because we have some other videos. So you'll continue to learn and grow. We have some resources for you as well that we'll be dropping in a moment. Now, for people that say this is a bad thing, I don't want to know anything about AI, it's going to be replacing educators, it's going to be replacing. It is just here to enhance, not to replace. So let's talk about that. How can it enhance? just in the setting, whether it's adult learners, um, youth learners. The thing is, an educator cannot duplicate themselves to give immediate feedback one on one in real time. AI, that's one example that AI can do, right? So when you talk about having a more personal pathway, when you talk about having more immediate feedback, right? The people quotient, the human quotient is not gone. It's just moving a little bit faster, but it still requires the human to recognize what needs to be adjusted for who and when. So it's still a lot where the human behind it is orchestrating the situation. Two, when people talk about AI being a bad thing, I want to be super clear that it actually was Socrates had a similar gripe, I'll say, with books. Some of y'all may have heard this because I've talked about this because it was just so impactful when I learned about this myself. That Socrates was like, listen, I don't these books y'all are talking about printing out all the knowledge on paper instead of people having to remember themselves. He was like, people are going to get dumb, basically. If they don't have to remember and recall themselves, he was like, well, what kind of intelligence will we have in the future? Now, pause. What would you say about that now? Can you imagine? Would you say that because of books, and I want to give it some parameters, haha, that because of books, that intelligence has regressed, or is it possibly been an enhancement? What do y'all think? Think about it and let's be honest. Let's talk about it because again, a lot of the same issues and gripes people concerned about if it's going to lessen critical thinking, if it's going to demote some intelligence levels, all of these things people once said about books. So y'all tell me your thoughts on that. What do you think? Someone said we can find bad and good in most things in this life. It's a choice. But if it's used for bad, then it will be. If AI is used for good, the output will follow suit. True. Very true. And just even what you said about the choice, the level of engagement, the things we use it for, how deeply we use it, how consistently, if we engage at all, every level, every aspect is truly a choice. Truly. So the challenges, we kind of went from the disconnect to the challenges. When we talk about the collaboration between the two, we're about to look at some data. We're going to look at some data, right? Because we can talk all day, but I know sometimes we have to make sure we see the statistics behind it while we're having these conversations about what is impacting and what is not, right? So we can make sure we chew the meat and throw the bones away, basically. So in this conversation, let's anchor on that if we're talking about being innovative, we're thinking about for our improvement plans, we want to have some innovation, we're leveraging tech well, that innovation isn't tech first, it's the people first, right? Meeting the needs of the people, but it's tech powered, tech powered. All right, you all. So the way that we're going to not just bridge that gap, but make sure we're leveraging it and embracing it in education is because we're making sure that we understand the shift happening in skill requirements. We talked about this a long time ago, but let me talk about it now because we're talking about how it's impacting education specifically. So it's not so much the recall, the rote memorization, these things we talked about. Did you get the right answer? Yes, AI can do all of that. So the parts that we still need is, again, that human quotient. It's a heavy emphasis on a skill shift, a skill requirement, the soft skills, right? Some people say the emotional intelligence, the finesse, the critical thinking, the creativity, the analyzing. Not even so much just application anymore. Where it's a lot deeper now. I'm saying a lot deeper. I'm going the wrong way on Bloom's. It's a lot higher up the Bloom's thinking and demonstration of understanding pyramid. We're at the tip top, right? And so that's what we need to be practicing with the young people if they're going to go to work with and for/create their own business spaces that are going to use AI. We need to be supporting them in their practice. and making sure they understand the different ways AI can be used to further their learning, their knowledge, their understanding. All right, all right. Because I can talk about that for a very long time, right? All right, you all. So that was just a clip from a live, I'm going to say maybe from January or so. Definitely was a while back. But the gist of that, slash a bit of an extension of that conversation, if we are preparing slash co-creating, we said, right, the future and what the young people know, like we're helping with their skill sets. For their skill sets is not just purely task. It's not purely, okay, can you apply this concept, this task to something? It's a lot higher up on that Bloom's taxonomy thinking, right? They're synthesizing and they have to create. Because even think about something as simple as AI, where a lot of people get stuck or a lot of people don't want to go further, it's because of I'm going to say it's because of even the creation, the prompt generation there, right? So right here, someone in the chat said, I believe for those who are seeking replacements for their work, that's what it will be, right? Their cognitive abilities will be lessened, if not constantly challenged. So that's what is definitely cognitive abilities being challenged because we're going further and further up the Bloom's taxonomy, right? So for those who are seeking enhancements, this will be the result. So again, if we want to enhance knowledge, we want to not replace it, we want to enhance it. Also, while we're preparing the young people, one thing that I need you to know is that if 80, last time I checked, and I checked this, it was January, right? It says some data from 2024 that there was 80% of companies that were using AI in some way. They were using it directly to get a market advantage, slash, even if you're interacting with the little chat box on the website, right? So from that point, if 80% of these organizations are using AI in some way, they're leveraging AI. But when we look at educational institutions, it's only about 1%. Then do y'all see the gap? Do y'all see the disconnect and why this conversation is imperative? We can't wait any longer. We have to jump on this right now. Because if we're constantly saying we're educating them so they can be not just proficient, so students can excel at their job and do really well, feel prepared, be confident, then how, if 1% of educational institutions are using things that are already being used, right, in the workspace? So whether they're creating their own jobs, if they're already, whether they're going to be career ready, military ready, all these areas, AI is there, but for education is 1%. And I'm gonna call it out. It's because people are scared. Because people are scared. They're like, well, I don't know, but let's learn something new, right? Like just like we tell students, well, you don't know, ask, right? Research, look it up. So we're here to have these conversations, basically. Okay. So here, AI and math, because it's like, well, how would that work in math class? So for this example, and again, I want you all to think about simple tasks. Think about some questions you've seen in class, questions you've asked students, questions that you might remember from an exam yourself, right? A simple task, very, very basic. But look at if we enhance with AI. It could be that same question. You gave it a prompt, right? And this is the prompt. It comes out with explain how you would solve 2x plus 5 equals 15 using a couple different methods. And then the student critiques which one is more efficient. So let me pause there. Again, a lot of times people think that AI, they're like, it's just giving them the answers. It's just, there's so many. Listen, before Chat GPT, and there is a math GPT, if y'all did not know that, for the post-secondary math. Okay, there's a math GPT as well. Way before that, y'all, there was stuff where people could get the answers. So at what point do we realize it's not so much the tools that are out there, but it's how we're teaching it? Because if a long time ago, students could have just gotten the answer, but we are still asking the same question, we have to shift the question if we want them to think more deeply, right? Talking about Socrates again, if now, okay, I know they can get the answer quickly. Okay, cool. Find the answer a couple different ways and let's evaluate which one is most efficient, which one is most effective. How can this become a real world scenario, right? Does this connect to the healthcare industry? How, right? Give me an example. So we have to use our creativity with the AI, with class, whatever we're teaching. So again, it will always and forever be the human quotient behind it. And again, I'm gonna fuss a little bit because a lot of people that are using AI, again, they're using it for more administrative tasks and on the personal level when it could be doing so much, so much in the classroom, right? Way past it, not just updating and refining a little bit your lesson plans, but actually what the students are experiencing. So this is what we're talking about. So we talked about the engagement equation, right? Are students engaged? Are they locked in? Are they seeing themselves in the questions, right? Is it a culturally relevant question? Are we talking about things they're curious about? Slash, are the questions boring? Are they boring? Right? Are we excited about the conversations we're having with them? Are we making sure that it is a conversation or is it purely lecture? Right? Purely lecture. And yes, even at this point, and I'm going to push a little bit, especially after K 12 learning, that's a hard shift for students because it goes from a lot of educators and professionals working to develop the engagement, right? Working to make sure you're meeting learners at their level, their learning styles, all of that. When you get to post secondary, everybody's pretty much getting the same thing. So this is again a big deal because we can definitely personalize learning that much more. And imagine having targeted support where you need it only instead of just kind of shooting up the middle. Because if we're going to talk about it, when we're addressing standards, we're teaching standards. At first, it is just a shot up the middle. You hope to hit mostly everybody, right? They call that the tier one instruction. So a tier one instruction, it could be a really good shot. You can catch most people, right? We want you to catch you about 80% of the class. But what happens when you don't? What adjustments do you make? How much can we even front load the tier one instruction so that we catch more than 80%? What? Right? Y'all, so much to say. I promise. So much to build around this. And again, if a lot of the concern, because some people are scared. Again, I'm gonna say it, but they're scared about what they don't know. We're here to learn. I'm gonna make sure I give you some resources from Holistic Fluency and some specific things from Google so that you can build your knowledge base. Please and thank you. All right. So one of these things, you all, we have an AI powered assessment tool, right? So we have that link and we're going to be dropping, it's going to be pinned to the comments, right? It's on our main page. If you click the bio link, you'll see it, you'll get there. But y'all, you can see, I just want to give you just a preview, just a glimpse. We have a mini resource, like a preview resource that is like, this is along the lines of what you can expect because basically we're just not okay with people not just not knowing, but sometimes like the young people, maybe we don't know where to start asking questions, right? Because that's real. You know how sometimes I'll say, especially for math class, sometimes a student does not know even how to articulate where they need to go, right? So just like some of the things, we make some adjustments, we give some previews, we give you things in pieces, we might color code it. There's so many different adjustments, accommodations that we might do in math class, in other class, what really in every class. Yeah, now I'm gonna talk about math now. But I wanted to let you see the vision, let you see the plan that's coming forth. So this is part of the mini resource. And again, you have the link in just a moment. Part one is AI powered prompts. So there's actually 3 prompts total for this first part. There's 3 parts. So very rich resource. And it's just basically talking about some questions, right? Maybe discussion questions, making sure your questions aren't boring, making sure they're relevant, all of that. But it also has some suggested tweaks because again, a lot of times people may not realize they may not have enough experience yet, right? Growth mindset, not yet. To know, let me have it try again, let me have it revise this. And I'll say a little more because I want them to do it more for Algebra 1 instead of sixth grade math. I want them to add a little more SEL check in to the activity. So regenerate, revise that, refine this. So even with each, you also for part one, again, I have a few prompts for you, and then there's still some tweaks for you to try. And it says, hey, if you want this to happen, try this. You want to elevate the rigor, add this to it. So giving you some concrete thoughts, concrete ideas, at least a starting point, because again, sometimes we don't even know what the launching pad should be. So building that in for you. Because again, it's super important. And I just really, I'm concerned that not everybody's understanding the shift that needs to be made and like how quickly though. Education is infamous for being too slow, for changing too slowly. And it's a constant situation of catch up when it comes to learning. And it doesn't have to be, especially not right now. So holistic fluency, we're trying to do our part. We're getting the resources out and we're having the conversations. So y'all talk back to me, right? Y'all talk to me. Y'all let me know once y'all get the resource. Y'all let me know what you think, what you tried, all of that. So some more data for SEL, because a lot of times people say, listen, that's something else to do. We don't have time for that. So SEL in math, ignoring SEL in math, not developing, not incorporating, not integrating the emotional intelligence side, right? That by first grade, you all, 60% of students report some kind of anxiety about math. By first grade, y'all, you're 6. You are 6 years old in first grade. So can you imagine by the time they get to 6th grade, what that percentage is like? By the time they become adults, when they get to adults, y'all, those numbers are like, it's 90 something. They say when someone mentions math, some people, woo, right? Strong feelings, strong body reaction, strong thoughts, just at the mention of math. Like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have school anymore. Ooh, right? We've heard people say that, like, oh, I'm glad I don't. Because of this, because there is not enough comfort. We'll say there wasn't enough comfort, wasn't enough support, wasn't enough experience in making mistakes being natural, right? Making mistakes on purpose, sometimes by design, we will call it. Seeing the power in mistakes, all of this, all of these conversations, right? Y'all, the impact is lifelong. It says students with math anxiety are less likely to pursue STEM careers. Pause. Isn't that all careers pretty much at this point? Or how many careers are not connected to science, technology, engineering, or math at this point? I'll wait. Name one. In some kind of way, what's not related to it, what's not connected. And so if there's this anxiety, this wall, this triggers somewhat, right? That the people won't even pursue certain things. They won't even think about themselves, their future in that way because of an experience from first grade or below. Someone said I was there. Math was a nasty 4-letter word for me from first through 12. And I get it. I get it. I hear that. I hear that. I hear that comments a lot. I really do. Again, from here though, y'all, so we have to think about that. So when we're choosing our words and we're planning our lessons, we're asking our questions, right? We're being mindful of our tone, our attitude towards the lesson, towards the mistakes. I'm gonna say it again. Not just our attitude, but our response, even if it's a question about the mistakes. Okay, because we don't want that to build an anxiety, or because I cannot tell you how many students that if I'm doing some private tutoring with them, the student will eventually say, you know what, Mrs. Jones, I just really never asked questions. I didn't raise my hand. And I'm like, well, tell me more about that. Why didn't, like, what was going on? For some of them, they say, oh, well, the kids might laugh if you didn't know the answer, but slash, that's its own thing, right? Because that should be checked for culture, class culture. Then the other thing is, it just generally didn't feel like a safe space, right? If it's to the point where someone doesn't even want to ask a question, because one, anxiety is the opposite of confidence when it comes to math life, right? So first, the safe space in practice makes the confidence so the anxiety goes down. But if it's not a safe space while we're practicing, slash, we're not practicing how we need to, when is the confidence supposed to come? Because anxiety is almost natural, just because of how people tend to talk about math. Okay, so we're working to counteract that. Literally, right? Even earlier today, I had a couple sessions with students, and that was the conversation. One of the young people is going to middle school, and y'all know middle school is my love. And I'm like, I cannot imagine a young person not asking a question the whole year, right? Like not a whole school year. You didn't ask a question, nor did necessarily the adult check in and realize that. You know, I don't know, y'all. I don't know. So someone said truth. In the 70s and 80s, teachers called us to the board, belittled us, and made us feel inept when we couldn't grasp concept. It was rough. Now, what if I told you that there should be more difference from 2025 to 1985? I'll go up the middle a little bit, right? Because the reality is 1985 was 40 years ago. So how different should these students' experiences be? We would hope leaps and bounds and miles. But a lot of the conversation, the expression of the feelings, the expression of, you know, my teacher was just going really, really quickly. I didn't know where to start. So a lot of those same emotions. I'm glad that you shared. I'm glad you said that. 40 years later, 40 years later, yo, that's a whole adult. And to me, that adult has two growns. They're grown, if they're 40. But in math class, the experience is the same. The takeaway at home is the same. Okay. Because we've been here for a minute. Y'all know that a lot of this we can talk about for a while. We really can. When we're talking about, again, SEL, and I'm going to say we can look at this also again through the lens of not just the math class, but just SEL's impact on academics, right? Now, what if this was like the theme in class, that quote I have up here? Because I actually love to talk about mistakes, what we learn from them, right? Whether good or bad, especially certain types of mistakes. I love to talk about errors. I really do. But what if this was the theme, but it wasn't just the theme that was said, it was felt in math class? That mistakes are proof that you're trying, right? Um, I'll say this, I had a class. It was years ago. I had a class and they were a very small class. It was like a rarity on the schedule. I don't know what happened that year, but for whatever reason, I had a class of 12. Now the other classes were packed out, promise. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was like athletics, double athletics that period. And I had 12 students in the class. And I was like, oh yeah, these are gonna be my rock stars. But guess what, y'all? At first, they were not. That was the most quiet class. They didn't want to talk, right? They didn't have questions at first. And I was like, yo, like I know somebody has a question. I'm like, okay, so in the other class, someone asked this. Do any of y'all have that question? Well, yeah. Well, why didn't you? And so, but they had learned, this is another thing, talking about the SEL, right? When you get students used to, you're going to make mistakes. You have to share what you're thinking, but it's okay if what you thought was not correct. They had learned that it was better to be quiet. That was their takeaway up until that point in math class with Mrs. Jones, right? They had learned it was just better to be quiet, because if I didn't know what was going on, I didn't understand, it's better for me to not bother the teacher and try to tell her that I didn't know and I didn't understand. I'll just sit here, the lesson will go, and then we'll go. But every time they took an assessment, right, those first couple of assessments, I was like, y'all are my class of 12. What? So yeah, I sat down, sat down in the chair in front of the class, like, okay, so tell me how math class had gone before, right? So we talked about a lot of that. Now, imagine this is a junior high. It was 1,000 7th and 8th graders. So it just so happened, quote unquote, wink, wink, right? That those 12 had a similar experience and ended up in that classroom together. right? They were the blenders. I call the blenders. They weren't going to cause behavioral problems. They were turning their homework. They came to class. There were no attendance issues. So if you were not really locked in, you would have missed these 12. But I took it as a gift later that I had these 12 that I could really see them because it was a smaller class, right? It wasn't a whole bunch of shenanigans and things happening. There wasn't anyone trying to outshine someone, being a very competitive overachiever. There wasn't some classes I spoke English and Spanish. This wasn't the case in that class. So I could really, really focus in where they were. So I took that as a gift, but just imagine, y'all look at the math without SEL. Had we not taken that moment, they were avoiding participating in math class. It's 12 of y'all. How? How do you figure I'm not going to notice nobody's talking? Right? They say, well, I'm just not math. I haven't been good at math. I just can't do it. That's changing this year. Okay. When it came to assessments, there was a lot of like the regulating things. You know how regulation, when people are trying to calm themselves, a lot of it is very rhythmic. So that's when you have your people tapping your pencil. Some people rock, some people tap their feet and things like that. There's always like a pattern to it. So that was probably one of the loudest days, those first couple of assessments. I was like, there's all this paper rattling and pencil tapping. Right? Just kind of observing at first. So not an outward big panic because they weren't those children, but they were panicking clearly internally. Now, definitely, so these were seventh graders, but young people learn to focus on the right answer only by about second grade, second, third grade. If that has been most of their experience, well, what answer did you get? Oh, no, not that. Anika, what did you get? Okay. Sheila, okay, very good. So for when that happens, right, when students tend to learn and focus on, and they've been taught, okay, was the answer correct or no? They're learning by consequence that that's the only important thing, not necessarily their effort, the process in the learning, but just the end result. And y'all, that's not even a life thing. We always say, oh, it's about the journey, right? It's about, but when are we supposed to learn that? Shouldn't we be modeling that in school if the classroom was just practice for the real world? Okay. So then when it comes time to be challenged, right? So some things are very, very new. There's a struggle. There's a struggle to persevere through that. So y'all, that was those 12. That was them. Right. Every time, oh, we learning something new. Oh, so that's when they started talking to me. Right. I thought we just did something. It's middle school math, y'all. It's gonna be a lot that's new. Right. Here we go. So the reality is that is math class without SEL. So I read through that side, but you can see that literally it's a shift. It's a 180 once some of these strategies were done, y'all. The check-ins. Well, we talked about mistakes, right? We would talk about some of the things that are misconceptions, right? I know that applies for any content area, right? So these are some mistakes. Let's talk about why. Sometimes you set them up. Give them a couple statements. Which of these do you agree with most? Right? So they're having to think, they're having to explain. They're talking about the content, and educators on here, right? Y'all back me up. Y'all, when someone is able to explain, when a young person is able to explain to another kid, yes, we know that that first kid truly understands, but they speak kidese to each other, right? They speak kid language to each other, and it'll click, and they'll have a connection. They'll have an analogy that maybe had not occurred to us yet, right? So that actually is another use for AI as well, sometimes for some of your analogies, right? Because at this point, do y'all know that Gen Z has like a language? And so it's already been linguistically studied. Do y'all know that? So at this point, if you wanted chat to revise a question, right? If you just want to work on the engagement, catch them off guard for a minute and say, translate this question to Gen Z speak, right? And then start that conversation about Black Wall Street, right? Then start that conversation about proportions. Then start that conversation about a persuasive essay. Yeah. So just different ways to make sure that the young people are talking, they're communicating, but they're reflecting. Then also the consistent check in. Sometimes we can see visibly that something is not okay with the young person, right? And we'll just keep it moving anyway. I'll say this, because yes, sometimes we do have to keep it moving, but if the expectation is set that every day in the beginning or at whatever time consistently, I know that Mrs. Jones is going to check on me. I don't have to act up. I don't have to cut up and show out to get some attention for someone to ask me what's wrong, because she always checks in consistently anyway. And it can be something quick, right? I know we're like, Anika, I don't have time, but you do. Let me tell you why. You can take 2 minutes. I'm gonna say to check with your class of 28. You can take 2 minutes or less. Everybody thought about it. They did it with their warm up, right? They finished their bell ringer problem. They know we're checking in next, and you switch it up, right? Maybe it was scale of 1 to 5. What number do you have today? Everybody 3 and up. We're pretty cool. People that are 1 and 2. All right, I'm gonna come talk to y'all. I'm gonna come check in before you leave today. I want you to know that part, because maybe I cannot stop, right? Because we're about to go straight into some modeling time on the board. This is new information, but I promise I'm gonna come see you before. I don't have time for that. Yes, you do, and let me tell you why. If you don't check in, they're gonna get your attention. Is it gonna be cool? Nope. They're gonna show out. Is it only gonna be 2 minutes? Nope. They're gonna take your time up. You're not gonna get through that lesson effectively, because it's gonna be teeth sucking. It's gonna be attitude, something they're gonna make noise, something you have to keep stopping. So you might as well take that 2 minutes or less, and it'll be less because once they get in the routine, they got it, right? They're gonna take your time. So you will want to invest that minute, 90 seconds. Most people will be cool. Those couple you need to talk to, make sure you get to them. That's it. Because otherwise, you're not getting through that lesson anyway. You're not. Not not these days. Someone said, yes, I remember some of my high school algebra teachers looking at me sideways, and they could see I was lost, yet they kept the train moving. Yeah, because you can definitely see. You can definitely see. It's very rare, especially that tweens and teens have poker faces yet, right? They don't have them yet. So you can see with no follow up. All right. So, y'all, from here, talking about, oh, my button got stuck. Okay, we went too far now. Wait, go back, go back. Showing all the stuff. Wait a minute. So we're talking about bridging SEL and math. We talked about it quite a lot, but remember that these are the goals. We're making sure that they're able to manage themselves, right? And I'm gonna pause and say this. So self-management is more so like a plan for coping more effectively, for being more resilient. Sometimes I think people misconstrue this, that they expect the child not to have any issues ever. That's not what we're saying. Self-management is like, I am being a little wild. I'm wilding out. Let me get myself back together. I have some strategies, some tools to do that. That's self-management, not that nobody has an off day. Not that. Their relationship skills, social awareness, responsible decision making, self awareness, right? These are the 5 pillars from Castle, who are like the authority on social emotional learning, emotional intelligence, especially for young people, developing adults, right? So when we're going back to bridging that gap, right? The relationship building, the awareness, yeah, all that also. I'm still just thinking about mistakes, the response to mistakes, the expectation of that, right? And them just understanding that it's a part of their growth. It's a part of their growth process. All right. So from here, What we're talking about, I'm calling it the collective in action, but the collective is AI, SEL, and math, right? My content, but also your content as well. When they are working together, that it is a whole nother dynamic, you all. It's a whole nother picture. I love to use this image because it applies to a lot of things, but imagine the student is saying, no, miss, it's a blue circle I'm looking at, right? This is how I understand school works. You right, y'all, we come to class, y'all tell us to write this paper, we hear these questions, and then I go home. It's a blue circle. But what if someone says, okay, well, if it's the teacher, the educator side, and they're looking at this orange rectangle, still from the school perspective, right? Still talking about school. And they're like, no, we're making sure that you're prepared for the future. We're making sure that you understand how to apply all these different situations and all these different standards, right? It's just a very connected learning. It's blended space. We have a flipped classroom, all these different things. And they're both looking at each other like, no, you said it's a blue circle. You said it's an orange rectangle. But what if the picture with these three things, with AI, SEL, and your content, yeah, we blend all of that together. We're not just, this is true, that is true, but this is the truth picture. This is the picture of truth because it all comes together, right? And everyone has this experience, right? So moving past what someone might be used to, moving past what, okay, this is the expectation, we have the meat together. That is the goal. That is what the goal should be at this point. And again, we have to move faster. We have to move faster. Okay, last couple of things. When we're talking about AI, I have a few cautions, okay? I have a few cautions. One, you have to think like a critic. You, me, us, we, the young people, everybody. We have to think like a critic. And so, kind of like my corny teacher joke, people say, the kids are so critical. I'm like, well, let's get their critical thinking skills on point then. Let's help them channel that, right? They're critical anyway. Let's channel that energy. That we have to do our due diligence when it comes to AI because it makes assumptions, first of all. When I tell you it makes assumptions, any bias that you can think of, AI has for different reasons, like in its development and things, right? Accessibility, that's something to think about. I know that there are certain districts that they're starting to set up, they call them like AI mobile labs. So that's really, really interesting just to make sure that besides like the device, the hotspot, all of that, that if there's certain AI programs, right, that you want your learners to be locked into, that it's made accessible and not assuming that everyone has the same access. Big deal. Big deal. I'm gonna lean in and I'm gonna say it a couple times. Educators. AI assumes that the young people, the learners, are on level, that they're ready to learn exactly what you're about to teach them. So, to give it some context, math life. If they're going to learn about like scaling, right, how a map works, how 1 inch, 1 centimeter on the map might actually equal 400 miles, that kind of thing. That's fraction life. So that means they have to be super solid in fractions. Maybe they're not, but AI is not going to assume that. It's going to say, hey, everybody's ready to go. And it goes up from there. So that is something super important, super serious to emphasize, that it assumes that everybody's ready to start learning that exact thing. Okay. The hallucinations, that's what they call it. AI will lie. Certain ones are more likely to lie. Okay. If you want to try it out, one of the first things I suggest, if you haven't had a whole lot of experience with AI, look up yourself. Say, hey, tell me what you know about Anika S. Jones. Some of it'll be true. Some of it is going to be a whole other thing. You'll be like, where did they get that from? So those are the hallucinations. So this is the thing. Just like, yeah, do y'all remember when we had to train the young people on Wikipedia? Like when Wikipedia first came out and everybody could update the page? That was a mess. Ooh, that was a mess. right? Because the kids were citing Wikipedia for everything, every paper. Well, I went on Wikipedia. Wait. So just like we had to train on validity for Wikipedia, same thing, you all. We train them to recognize, to check, to go back and double check, and also having that conversation, that real conversation that certain uh, AI platforms, AI systems are more valid than others. And I'm going to show you some in just a little bit, like kind of the order for which ones to use for what your needs are. Okay. Timing. Listen, that maybe, especially depending on the content, and this will be a big deal, that maybe you have AI as, like I always say, it's your thinking partner. It should not think for you. Maybe it helped you think about a draft for your essay, a draft of an outline, let me say, for your essay. But then you get in there and you put in the work. So thinking about the timing. Should I have AI try to write my whole essay? That's a for sure no. But can it be a starting point, a launching pad, a thinking partner? It can. So teaching them about the timing of it. When is it most appropriate to use in this situation, right? Reasonability. So math life, sometimes we have equations that you solve and there's a positive answer and a negative answer. If the question itself was about temperature in Texas, then more than likely you want to choose the positive answer, not the negative answer, right? Is it reasonable? If we were talking about summertime in Texas, we would choose the positive number, not the negative. Let's see, the chat's been rolling. Truth. I had a learner turn in a paper with AI generated fake CDC references. We must be careful to verify. I told you it will lie. And so you have adult learners. I did a workshop in Austin maybe a couple weeks ago now, and a third grade teacher was there. And so she was in the sessions. We talked about AI some. It was a little bit different, but I'm going to talk about AI, right? And she just said, I really want to come to your session because I teach third grade. And she said, I had a third grader that every assignment he turned in, at the top, it was like generated by ChatGPT. And she said, you could just tell that he was literally just copying and pasting. And she said that was her reality check. Like, he's in third grade. Oh my goodness. And he knows how to do something with this. And he's figuring out. She's like, and I know nothing. So that's why she came to the session. So we could talk about it, learn some things. And again, check on. So just certain things that we're learning and how we train, we have to train the young people as well. So that's another aspect, because even if we're using AI in math class, I'm going to have to somewhat put on my ELAR teacher hat, just like they check for the not just check, but teach the validity of sources and citing, right? We have to go through that as well. We do. Everybody should be having this conversation. Everyone. AI is an executive assistant, not the CEO. Okay, I like that. And to that point, we know that the CEO has the big picture scope, right? The vision. And the executive assistant is executing. So think about this thought for a minute, and you'll see the image a little bit later. That sometimes people say, well, this is all it can do. This is all it does. This is right. This is all it does. Then you will only see it as a certain type of tool, but it's more so us having to reteach ourselves and learn more of what it can do. We've been given it a certain lane, an administrative lane. And so, especially in education, the last statistic I saw said 80% of when AI is used in education or by educators is not to create. So it's not these amazing projects and tasks that could be happening. Like I said, it's just kind of, update a lesson plan, analyze some data real quick. Yeah. It's amazing that someone in third grade can use AI that well. The kids are, what do they call them? They say digital natives, right? So how a lot of us had to learn different tech as it came out and adapt. Y'all think about that. There's people who are your coworkers now that they do not know a time where Google did not exist. They do not know a time where Google did not exist. So their whole lives, we've had the internet, we've had Google, we've had a lot of, so these third graders Can you imagine the things that this is what they expect and this is what they know? Like how many different platforms? So much. So, and I appreciated her saying that because I do know that there's also even a number of there was a cartoon. I wish I could remember the name, but it was teaching the kids basically about generating prompts because it was like, hey, you can use AI if you wanted to. It was like a cartoon character. They were trying to recreate his arm, like something silly. They erased it by accident, and so they were like, well, tell Chat GPT to make a new arm. And then it made an arm, but the arm didn't match. So it was telling the kids how specific they have to be, right, to get the certain kind of generation and iteration that they want. I feel like it was on PBS, but it was teaching the young people basically about AI and how the prompts work and how to make your prompts even stronger. hmm So, and that was from a few years ago. That baby probably was in kindergarten watching that, and now he's in third grade, or finishing up third grade. So that's what you get, right? Because they're going to apply. They're definitely going to apply it. Oh, okay. So when we're talking about next steps, I'm about to drop this link for you for this mini resource. Y'all, if y'all have some questions, please get ready to ask your questions. But one, I told you a specific resource from Google, right? So Google partnered with Coursera, right? Y'all know that online platform. You can go and take a lot of courses for free. Google partnered with Coursera so that there is a prompt engineering for beginners class. So like, okay, I'm curious about using some of the AI. I don't really know how to start using prompts. They have that. Okay, they have that. Two, I told you some of the platforms are known for certain things. One, ChatGPT will hallucinate, so we have to be very careful about that. Two, Gemini, if you use Google on your phone, or really even if you didn't tell it, because I noticed that mine popped up one day, Google has Gemini for their AI. So, so if you don't want to register and things officially for chat, or if you want to kind of alternate, Gemini is probably the closest counterpart we have for ChatGPT. If you work in like a business where maybe you're analyzing a lot of numbers and things, right? Just personal, I'm saying personal, but company financial information. A lot of companies, organizations use Copilot because Copilot is connected to Microsoft. And so it's in house. Like you have to be on the system, right? You have to be like on the team. So Copilot is used for that a lot. Then Perplexity is the fact checker one, y'all. So if you're going through something and ChatGPT gave you some iteration, you're like, Perplexity is where you check it out. That is the fact check one. So a lot of people, especially with different news stories and things that occur and pop up, a lot of people running through Perplexity real quick. Claude is funny to me, but I'm gonna share Claude. He's good at emotional intelligence, right? So maybe you have a coworker, a colleague, a parent, something. There's some kind of emotional situation, right? And you have to communicate about it and communicate in text about it. So maybe your comment was coming in too hot. You know it, you feel it. Send it to Claude. Claude will rework it. It'll say what you needed to say. It won't be as hot. It'll go over much more smoothly. Okay. Then we have Synthesia. Synthesia, I'm playing around with Synthesia some still. That is a prompt to video platform. And let me say this for this prompt to video, now we know that there's different levels, right? With anything, there's different levels of how the AI avatars look, how they sound, because there's a specific male avatar voice that irks my soul. It does. And that's the one everybody uses though. But for Synthesia, you can choose a voice, like even if it's okay, it's like if I'm doing some onboarding videos, right, for the company, just for the sake of consistency, right, it could use the founder's voice. right? It can use the founder's voice and create a little avatar that looks like a person for real, right? They're looking more and more realistic. You might have seen, if you're on social media sometimes, you might have seen where some people are creating fake influencers. Have y'all seen that? Where it's not really a person, but they want to get into the healthcare, not I'm saying healthcare, but the like the fitness industry. So they create an avatar where the person looks really fit, right? They're dressing cute, and they're like, "Hey, buy my shake," and it's a fake influencer. So it even can, create the lifestyle and everything behind it. But Synthesia is again a prompt to video thing. So, like I said, some organizations I know that they're using it for onboarding to make sure it's consistent. It's consistent and effective because what happens if someone starts later in the year and they don't get the same training as everyone else? Slash, we have to slow down on productivity because I had to take someone, out of their usual capacity to come train you. So that's kind of impacting the company versus they can just press play and click rewind, all of that kind of thing, right? Two, educator life. Think about you rolling out a particular project or task, or maybe you have different patients you want them to see, right? And so for these different patients, you're making sure that each personality is represented a certain kind of way. So each one has its own storyline, its own narrative. Same kind of thing for project life for an educator. You know how many times a day you might have to repeat what the requirements are, the criteria, all of that. What if it was in a video of some sort, kind of like onboarding, where it's like, welcome to your project. You're going to do this, right? And they can explore, pause, rewind, all the things they need to do. And you're able to maybe do more direct work, right? More personalized work with the students, while others are able to get started on their project because they're ready. Okay. So that was just some of the thoughts I had about Synthesia. Just a couple. All right. Resources. One, we have the full AI powered assessment toolkit, right? But sure that you all really understood like what the value is, like what you can get from this. So I actually designed a mini resource. I designed a mini one. So in this mini one, like we showed some of the prompts at the beginning of the stream. Yep, you'll get some of the prompts. You get the prompts with the tweaks to make. If you're like, okay, because I just kind of need to know where to start, Anika, I got you. Right? We have some thoughts on some conversations, some good questions to ask, whether it's in the classroom or at home. And you also, again, get a sneak peek of and a tour a bit of the big one, right? For the AI powered assessment toolkit. So I'm dropping this link now. Y'all give me just a moment. I don't do well talking and using my hands. Okay, here we go. So I'm dropping in here. And again, y'all, we are super, super excited about this, super proud. And I want to be clear, if this is just a preview, I want y'all to be super understanding of the full benefit of the full product, okay, the paid product. So make sure you get that, grab that. And we're so, so thankful. I know someone said, yes, I learned a lot. Okay, y'all, there's still much to learn. So we will have more of these conversations. We will have more check-ins as well. But again, a big takeaway, AI is not here to replace, right? It's here to enhance the way we teach, learn, collaborate, all the things we do, it can enhance that. So stop just thinking that AI is like a hammer. I say it's not a hammer. Look at that. It's a Swiss Army knife. It's multifaceted. The way that we use it, the way that we engage with it depends on us. It'll all depend on us, our decisions around that. But I want to be super clear that it is an enhancement. It's a shift in our skill sets, right? Where it's not just the basic task. We're thinking through some things. We're solving some things. We're collaborating, right? It's very impactful. So does anyone have any questions? We asked the question part. Nobody said anything there. Any questions? Any questions? Y'all let me know. Thanks so much for the resources. You're very welcome. Y'all, if you know any educators, whether it's principals, superintendents, someone that works at the central office, y'all share this with them, share this conversation with them, at least share the resource with them so they can understand some of the work that we do here at Holistic. But thank you so, so much. If you are able to, I just dropped the link for the survey as well. Yeah, but that is all for this evening. Y'all hung out with me for a while. And I'm very appreciative. And I'm waiting a minute to see if someone might be typing a question. Let's see, let's see. So get your resources, complete the survey. If you missed part of it, right, as soon as I wrap this up, you'll be able to go back and watch from the beginning to see all of the conversation. Because it was good, if I say so myself, right? All right, good deal. Y'all definitely looking to continue to connect, have these conversations here on campuses, right? With teachers, with educators, with people, period, right? Everyone that's supporting learners, regardless of age, all right? I know I have some an adult educator on here as well. Y'all, we need to have these conversations. We need to dig into this learning. All right, y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.